Welcome back to Stacking Growth Snacks. I'm Steph Crugnola, and today we are covering remarketing. And with me, I'm so excited because I have two senior performance marketing managers, Libby, Schell, and Malin Wijenayake. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. We're going to start with our snacks, and I'm going to ask both of you, what is your favorite nostalgic snack? Something that makes you think of childhood?
I think for me, it's kind of pretty basic, but it was just like toast with like peanut butter. That was like my go-to as a child.
Classic crunchy Cheetos. Like when those were in my house, it was an occasion. It wasn't often, but oh yeah, I was all about the Cheeto fingers and still really am.
So we are going to dive into it. Let's start with objectives and process. So we're talking about remarketing. Can you walk me through the process of building a remarketing campaign? Who's involved, at what stages, what information you need to gather, all of the things that you need to set yourself up for success?
I think before you get to the stage of building a remarketing campaign, I think it is important to understand who is involved. So usually you'll need a platform campaign manager, obviously, to set up the campaign, but then there's also involvement with web teams, right? In order to capture website traffic and remarket to them, you will need someone who is comfortable working with installing tracking codes from platforms. So you might have some involvement there from your web team. In addition to that, lately I've been dealing with more legal teams where tracking restrictions are becoming more normal, cookie policies and such. And so sometimes there is an involvement with legal teams to understand what we're actually able to track and how we do it. So there is a little bit of overlap with them as well.
Yeah, I would say your POC is going to be huge. And then if you have any kind of product marketing on your team that really knows the intricacies of your ICP, of your buyer, of your different personas, that's when they can get involved to help you figure out some of those additional targeting criteria that you can layer on top of that pure, website remarketing or engagement audience. And that's something that I've really found to be useful when trying to cut down on a very large audience size. Additionally, similar to Malin, I have been also kind of dealing more with the legal teams to try and get clearance, jumping through those hoops, because it is very important. The last thing we want to do is put an organization in a place where they're violating data privacy. And we want to make sure that we're checking all the boxes and doing the right thing ethically, and then also to ensure that we're making a really good, solid brand impression. The last thing you want is to check the box and say, no, don't track me. And then you show up on a remarketing and you're very confused as to why you're getting shown this stuff saying, hey, we saw you were on the website. Wait, how? You're not supposed to. So I think that's also another element of that legal side that we need to be really careful of. And then also just from like a technical perspective, working with that web team or whoever's managing your tag manager, your website, get that set up as soon as possible. There's no look back with remarketing audiences. So the day you set up your audience and the tracking is when it starts. And you'll need a healthy amount of look back data in order to build a healthy audience. So the best day to do that is today and get that set up, because the last thing you want is for your manager to come to you in 6 months and say, hey, let's set up some retargeting, and you don't have an audience to work off of. It's not a fun conversation to have.
I see the exact same problem you're describing come more and more often now. I think, if you're starting off in a new marketing team, just like making sure every platform you think you might use in the future, if you're not already utilizing it, you should just go ahead, set up an account and just get that tracking pixel installed. Whether it be Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, even if you're not planning on advertising or don't even have any budget to use on those platforms, just getting that tag installed and tracked from the get-go is so important. So I'm glad you raised that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Honestly, thinking about in the future, like putting together a 30, 60, 90-day plan, checking to make sure that we have retargeting audiences and that we have the pixel set up correctly will always be within my first 30 days of recommendations. It's a really quick win. It's not a huge lift, and it really sets you up for success long-term. Not just that, like you can get a lot of insights from just setting up these audiences. You don't have to use them. You don't have to use them for advertising, but just better understanding the demographics of what retargeting audience could look like will tell you a lot about who's actually engaging with your content and your website.
Okay, so once you've got everyone involved, what are some of the goals that you set to make sure that everyone is aligned through the full process?
Right off the bat, I think you just need to be aligned with your team, your POC, on what exactly you're trying to accomplish with your remarketing. Is it purely trying to capture, leads and demos and conversions, or are you looking to re-engage people? Are you trying to nurture them? Depending on those two that I typically see, there's different goals and metrics that we track as a result of that. So as far as bottom of funnel, getting demos, leads, conversions, that's quite simple. You're assessing whether your remarketing campaign is leading to more form fills, checking out that completion rate. What is our standard that we're trying to reach with this remarketing campaign? Establishing that KPI with your team, maybe based on prior results or a comparison to what you might be experiencing in the account targeting cold audiences. Typically, we see that remarketing campaigns convert a lot quicker, a lot better than standard cold targeting campaigns. So we do typically benchmark that as a higher, threshold, a higher conversion rate, a higher demo volume compared to some of the other audiences. So establishing that as a benchmark and setting a goal towards that would be a go-to there. And then for the secondary type of campaign that I spoke of regarding nurturing, that's less leaning on bottom of funnel conversion. That's more leaning on people engaging with the ad content, clicking through. So establishing a goal for a click-through rate or an engagement rate on your ads or campaign. I would steer to that side of things as opposed to trying to set a goal for conversions for nurturing.
Building off of that second kind of campaign, one thing that I found really interesting is even using remarketing in this circumstance for kind of a re-engagement nurture campaign. And the way you would go about doing that is you would set up your standard remarketing, and then you would also set up some conditional rules saying like this does not include anyone or any account that has an active or open opportunity. Or you could potentially set it up and say, this is only target people and accounts with an active opportunity, but it is not far enough or progressing in the sales cycle quite as fast as you would want. And you can use remarketing to serve targeted assets to this audience as well. So that's another way that you can potentially use remarketing just as kind of an engagement tactic. It does require a little more legwork in terms of uploading some exclusion lists or additional lists from your CRM, but that's something that you can pretty easily set up with a quick integration, especially with LinkedIn. There's very easy integrations, especially with Cappy now, and honestly, just using Zapier and setting up a Zap where you're pulling things directly from HubSpot or Salesforce into LinkedIn and using that data in real time.
If you weren't using any Salesforce or CRM data to do that, would you suggest trying just website traffic rules, like people who maybe visited a thank you page for a demo and excluding that?
That is 100% what I would do. Also, if there is some kind of demo experience or free trial or a part of your site that's only accessible to people who are further in the sales process or something like that, one of those landing pages that you can't actually find or a Google crawler can't find very easily, but if you have the direct link, then you'll actually be there. I think those are great places to build that list from. The one concern there is that your list is probably going to be fairly small. So when I am running a campaign like that, I'll usually also manually upload a list of accounts so that we can supplement and use and or logic. So we'll use or logic and say, hey, they need to be part of this remarketing audience, or they need to be part of this account list. It doesn't have to be like a direct integration, but if you have an active list of opportunities in market or that are being worked right now, that's certainly something that you can do to supplement. When I'm talking about those with a client, the first thing that I always want to do very, very much upfront at the beginning of the engagement is talk about, why do you want to run remarketing? Not just, well, it seems like something that everyone does. Of course, we want to run remarketing, but there are a lot of different understandings of what remarketing audiences and campaigns are for. So I like to level set from the very beginning, understand where everyone's coming from, what their prior experience is, and then all realign on kind of a single source of truth, so that when we're talking about metrics or performance or lift or engagement, we're all aligned in terms of what are we actually thinking that we're talking about. Otherwise, there's just a lot of opportunity for misconception and misunderstanding. So I like to always start my conversations with, why are we doing this and what is your expected result? By asking what your expected result is, I can either kind of get in front of some potential misconceptions about the true impact of these campaigns, or I can actually speak to, this is what we can get done and here's how we'll report on a regular basis. So I think that that's a really important way of establishing your goals up front, just by having that open, honest conversation.
All right. So next time we're going to get into some of those measurement, realistic expectations, budget allocation, a little bit more of the details. Thank you both so much, and we'll see y'all next time.